Okay, we're back here in fabulous Las Vegas, and we're going to talk about the NFL. And last week's pick, now you may know every week Sal the Bookmaker gives you picks that you, if you'd like, you can bet them. And if you've been betting along with me week in and week out, you've made money. That's for sure. This is not a tout show. I'm not trying to sell picks. I don't care about that. This is just fun for me and the listeners and the viewers. We're just having fun with it. We're picking teams because we all like to pick a side. Well, I'm picking sides, and I'm picking them against the odds maker. And I'm picking them right. Largely, I'm picking them right. It's kind of crazy. Even last week, I had 3 winners last week, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers with a real nice win, the Green Bay Packers, on which I said 3 weeks ago they were going to win out, and so far they've won the last 3 games. And that means there's only 3 left, and they're very winnable games, and we may get to that in a bit. And also I had the New York Giants in an upset over the Dallas Cowboys. So this week, we have a lot of games where teams have to win. I mean, most of the schedule, if you look at all of the games that are out there, probably 3 or 4 of them don't have must-win next to them for one team or another, because there are tiebreakers, there are head-to-head matchups, and we're down to the last 3 games really in the NFL, and we're going to try to figure out who has the easiest track, but also we're going to look at the teams that probably need the wins the most and they have the highest probability of winning. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to start right off with Green Bay at Chicago. And I've been talking Green Bay all year, which is really hard. You know, I feel really bad for my hometown Bears. But the Bears, they've been decimated by injury. Defensively, they're really good, but they just don't have the offense to score. And so ultimately, if you look at their performance, the Bears' defense performance against their opponents as the game wears on, they're actually ranked in the top 10 in the league defensively. But the problem is Green Bay is getting healthy. They have a running game again. Aaron Rodgers was throwing over 70% of the time because he had no running game. Now he's got his running game back. It's a very dangerous team with very dangerous weapons. Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams. These guys are playing really well. And the line is 4.5. Green Bay should win this game by at least 7 points. It's in Chicago. It's cold. It's really cold. I think the high in Chicago today is -4. So they're both used to playing in cold weather, but it would happen to be that these are 2 teams that are very familiar with each other. And I wouldn't even call this the Bears Super Bowl because the Bears don't even have the personnel to put on the field to get up for one game. Not in this arena. I think Green Bay gets the nod in this one. There's your winner in that game. Moving on, keeping in the same division. You've got Detroit in first place, and you've got Minnesota and Green Bay right there trying to catch Detroit. Now, Minnesota's in an interesting position because they've been injured as well. They've lost some players, and Minnesota is pairing up against Indianapolis, which is a good team, but Indianapolis has a quarterback who just basically can't even move his arm. He's in big, big trouble. And so Minnesota right now, they're getting healthier. They're playing at home. They're playing in their dome versus Indianapolis's dome. And Indianapolis doesn't have the manpower to move the ball up and downfield against a pretty good Minnesota defense. So look for Minnesota to cover the 4 at home against Indianapolis. Also, in Kansas City, we have another interesting game because remember, the Raiders lost last week, which really makes that division from 1 through 3, it really makes it wide open. Now, Kansas City is really in a position to take that division over and put a stranglehold on it. But remember, Denver is right there with Oakland. Oakland dropped from the number 1 seed in the playoffs in the AFC down to number 5. And that's a big, big difference when it comes to playing on the road versus playing at home when it comes to playoff seeding. And Kansas City has a really tough game, though, at home against a very well-balanced Tennessee team. Now, the Titans, they have the 2-headed monster at running back. They have a really good quarterback that also can run the ball, Marcus Mariota. And this is a team that knows how to win on the road, and they certainly will have no trouble covering, or I should say, getting 5.5 points at Kansas City. So I would take Tennessee with 5.5. That really seems like one of the best picks of the week. And I look for a real low-scoring game, a ball control. So that probably could be an unders game. The over and under is 42, which is the total points combined between the 2 teams. and the weather forecast is just simply going to be 10 degrees, cold, and miserable. So don't look for a big passing game. This plays right into the hands of Tennessee, and Tennessee should get the win outright because I think they really need it for the division. And Kansas City, yes, they need it as well, but Tennessee is fighting for their playoff lives, whereas Kansas City's already in the playoffs for the most part. It's just where they're going to finish up. In first place in the division, where they want to be or not. We don't know yet. Now, the last game that I want to cover is New Orleans at Arizona. And New Orleans at Arizona, both of those two teams, they have no more playoff picture. They're playing really for pride now. And you've got two veteran quarterbacks that are basically playing to better their careers and better the team around them as well. So now really you've got Drew Brees for New Orleans against Carson Palmer with Arizona. Palmer's sort of on his way out. Brees has kind of hit the apex of his career. He's starting to dip a little bit, but Brees has more offensive weapons on that team. And despite what happened the last couple of weeks with New Orleans, look for Brees to have a big game against Arizona. Despite Arizona's defense, look for a high-scoring game with these two teams. This is one of those 31-27 type of games. And Arizona is giving 3 to New Orleans. I take the points, and I go over the total of 50.5. That seems to be the logical move. And let's mention one other game here real quick. Let's talk real quick about Washington's at home against Carolina. Washington is playing for their playoff lives right now, and they have kind of an interesting position in the standings because they have a tie. And that tie works as a tiebreaker against some of these other teams. So Washington could catch the New York Giants and make it very interesting for the seeding. And these teams in the NFC West, or East, are going to beat each other up. And I would really look to see if Washington can really take a page out of the Dallas Cowboy book when it comes to ball control and keep Carolina off the field. And Washington should cover the 6 points at home despite Cam Newton and all those wonderful weapons for the Carolina Panthers. So moving to the NCAA football, we're entering bowl season here. But before we get into the bowl season and all that fun stuff, I do want to mention that Wake Forest University, and this has been all over the news, and everybody has an opinion, so now you're getting my opinion. Wake Forest, the former coach, one of the former coaches, the guy on the staff from a couple of years ago, he got so upset that he didn't get rehired as a coach again when the management had changed, when the coaching has changed. And so what he did was, as a radio broadcaster for Wake Forest Demon Deacons football, this guy actually went and solicited the plays and the game plans of Wake Forest football. Believe it or not, unbelievable. Why would you do that? Sabotage your old team. Why? Because they didn't rehire you? That's ridiculous. And what's even more ridiculous is that Louisville admitted, yes, Louisville, that was in the national hunt this year. They admitted to getting information from Mike McIntyre. Mike McIntyre's the guy. And no punishment was doled out. And guess what? Virginia Tech got the same information. Once again, no punishment was doled out to either one of them. But then again, I think it's fair that you don't give punishment to them. And the reason I say that is because if you get your hands on the other team's playbook, all is fair in love and war. This is a sport. This is not, well, geez, we hurt somebody's feelings. I don't care about that. This is about getting any advantage you can. And it's not like you're going in and siphoning it from another team. He was making it available, so other teams took it. I don't agree with it. I don't. From a moralistic standpoint, I think it's wrong. From an integrity standpoint, it's really wrong. But I don't fault the guys for taking the information if they're in the national hunt. And let's face it, Mike McIntyre will never work in football again. He'll never work on the radio. He'll never work on television. He's going to find himself maybe on the lecture circuit somewhere. But this guy, he really did, mind you, this is his own university. Yes, he went. He was a graduate from Wake Forest University as well. He's an embarrassment to the ACC. And I'm a Duke guy, and so for me, I applaud that just because something bad happened to them. But I feel bad for the ACC because this is a prideful conference, and people do things the right way. And Mike McIntyre needs to be punished to the highest possible point and banished from football, from television, from radio, all media. This guy has no place in this business today, and anybody who endorses that, I think you have no place in that business as well today, because what he did outright was wrong. Absolutely wrong. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.